All right, hey everyone. This is video B1 of the beginning skills, showing you how to log into Family Search and Virtual Pedigree. So the first thing to make sure you can do is make sure you can log into Family Search. So I'm just going to type in familysearch.org here, and I'm just going to go over to sign in and type in your username and password. If you forgot either of those, you can click these help links, and in some cases you may have to actually call or email the support. Start with your username if you don't remember your username, and then you can choose either of these options and type in your email that might be associated with it, or your phone number, and then that's to retrieve your username, and then password is kind of the same way. Just click that link and then it'll ask you, and eventually if you don't remember enough information, you may have to talk to your ward clerk or contact the support directly through email. You can, I believe, use this little question mark button and do contact us, and then that will give you the option to get in touch. They're pretty good at getting back to you on it. So that's for Family Search. And then for Virtual Pedigree, I can never remember the URL, so I just type in Virtual Pedigree BYU, and that will bring you to this link here. Just make sure it's virtualpedigree.familytech.byu.edu. It's kind of a long link name, so I just Google it and find the link. Then I click on the link, and then for me, oh, there we go. So then from there, you just click in here, sign in with familysearch.org, and it is the exact same login information that that you use to sign into Family Search. So go ahead and click sign in, and then you're good to go. So after you have logged into Family Search and Virtual Pedigree, I've just scrolled over a few generations over to my, I guess, great grandpa Bryant Smith Stringham. So when you first log in, it'll just show your name right here. But you can just scroll over, and you can choose any, basically any branch, any line to go down. But the first thing that I do, the general idea is that we're going to assume that a lot of times our temple and family history work is done for our immediate ancestors. And so the way that we find work that needs to be done is we're going to be doing work for our 5th through our 10th cousins. And I'm going to show you how to find those. We're basically going to zigzag through our family tree. We're going to zoom out to our ancestors, and then we're going to do what's called set them as the root. So right now we're looking at all of my ancestors. Then we're going to zoom out as far as we can, basically, and then we're going to set one of our ancestors back in as far as we can go, maybe the 16 or 1700s. Set them as the root, which just means now we're going to be looking at all of their descendants. And then once we look at all of their descendants, then we're basically going to be looking at our 5th or our 10th cousins, depending on what generation we're at, and then scrolling through those. And if you want to come back and set one of their descendants as the root, and then scroll the other way, you can basically zigzag through your family tree until you find work that hasn't been done. So I'm just going to start here, and I'm going to start going back, and the trick is you have to let everything load. So hopefully you have a good internet connection. I'm just going to choose some random tree. I'm not trying to stay on my paternal line or anything like that. I'm just going to go back, and the reason why we do that again is to find our cousins. And then the sweet spot, you can see these are the years that they were born and died. And we're basically going to, once we come back, we're going to try and find generations from the early to mid 1800s is when they were born, up to 1900. And this is a sweet spot for basically they're old enough. They're born over 110 years ago, so you can do their work, but they're recent enough that there are often good records for them, good census and birth records. If you get before the 1800s, they didn't. Most countries didn't start doing censuses or very good records, and so you're not able to take advantage of all the good indexing that has been done. Indexing, by the way, is just basically digitization of different records. So with that little background, I'm just going to go down. I'm going to keep going further and further back to my ancestors, and basically you want to find someone. Looks like for mine, this line is going back to the 1500s and beyond. That may not always be the case. You may only be able to, this will work even if you're only able to go to the 1700s. I'm going to call that good right there. Alright, so I'm going to set Thomas John Fitz Ashby as the root. And basically now we're going to be looking at all of his descendants and ancestors. So since we want to get back to where we have good records, back to the 1800s, 18 to 1900, we're basically going to scroll to the left. And notice you can also use your wheel to zoom in and out. I like to zoom out just a little bit. And you just saw this name pop up here. So this pane on the right is kind of that's where all the names will appear of people that we can do their ordinances for. So blue means there's record matches. You can ignore those. We're looking for green. Green is gold. So you can also see them on here, on the actual name themselves. If there's a green temple, it means that there's an available ordinance. So Catherine Ashby can be sealed to her parents, apparently. So, but I'm gonna try and find people who need all of their ordinances done, or as many as possible. So I'm just gonna ignore that for now. But if I click on it here, you can see that sealing to parents is ready. So I'm just gonna ignore that for now though, because I want the gold mine of ordinances. So I'm just going to scroll to the left, and sometimes you'll go down a line that terminates, and that means that they maybe have children, but we don't have any records for them. So I'm just not going to worry about that for now. So I'm just going to go down a line that does not terminate, and you can see names will start to appear here. And remember, you have to let it load, so hopefully your internet is cruising. So now I'm scrolling back, and you can see the dates are now 1800s, 1836. Oh, and one name just popped up there. Oh, a bunch of names just popped up. So a bunch in the Snow family. And let's see, where were those? They must have appeared without me really noticing. Sometimes it will populate with names that aren't directly in your screen, but they're close. Oh, there we go. So Julia Snow. If you can't see them on your screen, you can always just click right here. So if I do Julia Sophie Snow, I can just click on that, and then it will tell me baptism ready, confirmation, initiatory endowment, sealing. So from here we can look at a few things when I'm deciding whether or not to get that person's do that person's work. I always check to see the number of sources. So we only want to do work for people that have sources. That doesn't mean we can't find sources. So if this number is 0, that's okay. We can still find them, but it's just going to be easier if they already have sources. So if you're just looking to do a few pretty quick, you're going to want to keep scrolling through this through here until you find ones that have more sources, and basically as long as you populate them here, they will not go away as long as you're in that session. So you can click on them, and if you want to save them for later, you can either write down their IDs. So Elijah C. Willis, he doesn't have any sources. So it's possible that he was a duplicate, or we might have to do a little more research that we're going to learn how to do later. And so, but if I'm looking to start with some easy ones, then I'll just click through these until I find. So like Julia Sophie Snow has 6, Mary E. Snow has 3. So you typically want to find, depends on what type of source it is. It determines how valuable it is. But the more information, the more sources, kind of the better, the more certain you can be that it's not a duplicate and that it is actually a real person, which we want to use our time as wisely as possible. So that's important to try and do. So once you have names here, you can either keep going, and as you keep going, scrolling down, see I'm now that before I was going left to right, now I'm basically going vertical up and down because I want to stay in this 18. They need to be born before 1912 basically to have been born 110 years ago. So if I get back in here, I've got some that were born in 1918. Even if they were deceased, that would have been too recent to be able to do their work, because they need to have been born at least 110 years ago. So I'm going to stay kind of in the sweet spot of 18 to 1900, and just keep scrolling down, and you can see names, more and more names will just populate as I let it load. And the higher the number, the better over here on available ordinances. So that just means that there's 5 ordinances that need to be done, which just means that they have more work to be done. So so basically you can do that as long as you want. Once you have a few names over here, that's kind of a good start. And you'll also find that sometimes when you're doing this, that if you find one that has an available ordinance, then oftentimes as you get into more research, that you'll find their siblings or parents or in-laws that maybe their records aren't in there, so that it's a good opportunity to do some research. So now that I've found that individual, the next step is to click on them. So Elijah C. Willis, that's 0 sources. I'm going to skip that one for now. So I'm going to look at Elizabeth Hanson. There's only 1. I'm going to skip that for now. Julia Sophia Snow. So there are 6 sources. So from there, how I basically what I'm going to do, which is going to be part of the next step. Well, I'm gonna click see on familysearch.org. That's going to, I'm going to sign in if I haven't been signed in already. That's going to take me to their name on Family Search. So step number 1, once you've found a name that you think needs their work done, is to scroll down to possible duplicates over here. On the right, under tools, there will be a little link that says possible duplicates. We want to make sure that says 0. So if it doesn't say 0, then we have to merge the duplicates. I'll show you how to do that. But for this person, we can see that possible duplicates is 0. So the next step is to check for sources so we can make sure that this is a real person, and not something typed in erroneously. So sometimes you'll look at names, and there will be separate records for Julia. Maybe there will be a Julia Sophia Snow and a Julie Sophia Snow, or a Julie Snow. Maybe there were, when it was being indexed, someone didn't notice that, oh, Julie and Julia born, the record maybe born within a year or 2 of each other, and it's actually the same person. So we want to check the sources, and the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go up here to sources, and we're going to check these out. Find a grave index, that's good. So in terms of value of the sources, birth and death records are, I'd say, the most valuable and accurate. Census records are okay and can kind of give you some approximate dates, but they're not going to be very specific. They're not going to also not going to give you locations. So find a grave index is great because you know that that's actually a death record. A birth record would be great, but since she was born in 1836, we probably maybe a birth record doesn't exist, or if it does exist, it at least hasn't been digitized, hasn't been indexed yet. So this person has a find a grave index source. She also has a Massachusetts death source, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4 census records. So I feel pretty confident that this person is a real person and that she's not a duplicate. So from there, we're going to go ahead and reserve their ordinances. So for that, we're going to go over here to this ordinances tab, and then right here we can request anyone individually, or we can request them all by hitting this blue button at the top. So we're just going to request, and then you should read this policy. Basically just says you can submit names for people who are immediate family or direct ancestors, but also are people connected to your family line. That's what I was talking about with your 5th through 10th cousins. So biological, adoptive, foster family lines, collateral family lines, descendants of your ancestors, your own descendants, and then possible ancestors. And then also gives guidelines on you're not supposed to submit for famous people or just kind of bulk extraction events. Then this is the 110-year limit guideline. They have to have been deceased for at least 1 year, and they need to have been born in the last before 110 years, unless you have permission from one of the closest living relatives. So I'm going to hit accept. And then once that's done, then it says baptism in progress or confirmation in progress, and then I can go ahead and print those. Print family name cards, and then check all the boxes, hit continue, and then print up here, and then I can send it to the printer that I want, and you're set. And then once I close that, it's going to ask, was it created? And then you can hit yes or no. I didn't actually print it, so I'm going to say no here, but you'll hit yes if it was successful. And then once you've printed that, then I'll say printed, and you can reprint this anytime. Just make sure you destroy the old card so that you don't accidentally do it twice. Once you reserve these, it will also show up in your Ordinances Ready app, I believe, and then you can have it printed at the temple. So that is how you reserve a name. The key is that you check for duplicates first, and I'll show you how to do that in a future video on how to merge duplicates if necessary, but for now just make sure the duplicates are 0 and that there's at least 2 or 3 sources, and one of those sources, in my opinion, should be a birth or a death record, and the others can be a census, and then you can reserve and print.